A child falls into a tiger enclosure. His mother turns too late. The crowd screams. For 1 second, nothing moves. Then the tiger stops walking. Its head turns. Its eyes lock onto the child. The boy stands frozen in the dirt. Above him, people are shouting, pointing, reaching, but no one can get down fast enough. If the tiger moves first, the child is dead. Now remove the wall. Remove the crowd. Remove the keepers. Remove the emergency plan. Remove every human who could save you. That was the world prehistoric humans lived in. A world where one mistake could put you face to face with something faster, stronger, and built to kill. Of course, prehistoric humans feared predators. They would have been foolish not to. A big cat in the dark was not a symbol. It was muscle, hunger, silence, and speed. A bear near a shelter was not a movie monster. It was a wall of living weight. A pack of wolves outside the firelight could turn one careless step into the last step. So yes, predators were terrifying. But here is the part most people get wrong. The deadliest threat our ancestors faced was not the animal in front of them. It was something that could make even predators stop hunting. A big cat could stay hungry. Wolves could remain hidden. A bear could wait. Not because they were gentle, not because the world was safe, but because something outside the hunt made hunting itself too dangerous. And if animals built to kill could be forced to stop, what chance did a small human group have? That is the real question. Not what animal could kill one person, but what force could make the whole world harder to survive. A predator is easy to picture. It has a body, a sound, a direction. It appears from somewhere. You can track it. Avoid it, hear it, smell it, warn the others. Sometimes, if the group is ready, you can even fight it. That is why predators dominate our imagination. They give fear a face. But the worst threat prehistoric humans faced may not have had a face at all. It did not leap from the dark. It did not leave claw marks. It did not need to enter the camp. It worked differently. It attacked the things keeping the people alive. The fire, the food, the ground, the path, the strength to try again tomorrow. So, if predators were not the worst threat prehistoric humans faced, what was? To answer that, do not start with the monster outside the camp. Start with the camp itself. A prehistoric camp was not just a place to sleep. It was a fragile machine made of people, fire, memory, tools, skins, food, and trust. If one part failed, the others had to hold. If several parts failed together, the group could begin to break. A predator could break a body, but the greater threat could break the system around the body. Take fire. For us, fire is atmosphere, a candle, a fireplace, a camping trick. For them, fire was survival technology. It kept meat safe enough to eat, hands warm enough to work, children calm enough to sleep, eyes in the dark far enough away. So when the flame shrank into smoke, the night did not just get colder. The night moved closer. Nothing had attacked yet. Nothing had roared. No teeth had entered the camp. But the group was already losing. A child sat near the weak flame and stopped complaining. That was not a good sign. A child who complains still has energy. A child who goes quiet makes adults look at each other. A hunter held a stone point in stiff fingers and tried to fix the edge. His hands did not obey quickly. An older woman touched the damp fuel and knew it would not catch easily. Someone blew into the ember. The smoke came back into their face. Still no monster, still no attack. The camp was failing. Now think about food. Today, if one meal is ruined, you open another package. For prehistoric humans, food was not a product. It was hours of walking. A good track followed at the right time. Risk near large animals. A sharp stone edge. A body dragged back before scavengers arrived. A fire kept alive long enough to cook it. A decision about how much to eat now and how much to save. Meat was not just dinner. It was yesterday's danger turned into tomorrow's chance. So imagine earning that food and then losing it without anything eating it. No predator took it, no enemy stole it, no scavenger dragged it away. It simply became unsafe. The smell changed, the surface changed, the texture changed. A piece of meat that took days of risk could become a threat in one bad night. What was supposed to keep people alive could now make them sick. No refrigerator, no sealed box, no canned food, no backup freezer, no dry warehouse, no supply truck coming tomorrow. Meat could rot, plants could mold, stored roots could soften and turn foul. Animal skins could stay wet for days. Firewood could become useless. And the worst part was not losing one meal. It was losing tomorrow's meal too. That is how this danger worked. It did not always arrive as one dramatic moment. It arrived as fewer options. A bundle of wood that would not catch. A strip of meat that smelled wrong. A child too tired to cry. A hunter staring at ground where tracks should have been. A skin cloak dripping water instead of holding warmth. An elder pointing towards safer ground, then lowering his hand because his legs could not carry him there. The monster had not entered the camp, but the camp was already failing. Movement was another part of the chain. A prehistoric group survived by reading the land. A track in soft ground. A broken branch. A path to water. A place where animals crossed. A ridge that usually stayed passable. Memory was not just memory. It was a map. But a map only works if the world still behaves close enough to what people remember. When the ground changes, memory can become dangerous. A path that worked yesterday can fail today. A crossing that looked familiar can become deadly. A hollow that seems safe can become a trap. A group might know exactly where they wanted to go and still be unable to reach it. That is when survival becomes terrifying. Not because people are stupid, because the world removes their options. Modern humans live inside backup systems. Warnings, shelters, doctors, clean water, rescue teams, food supply chains, hospitals, weather maps, international relief. And still, when those systems are overwhelmed, modern life becomes fragile very fast. Roads close, power fails, food spoils, hospitals fill, people wait on rooftops. Rescue teams cannot reach everyone. Now, remove all of it. If the fire failed, there was no heater. If food spoiled, there was no fridge. If someone got sick, there was no clinic. If the group had to move, there was no safe road waiting. If the water became dangerous, there was no clean water truck coming. If people vanished, there was no radio call, no helicopter, no search team with floodlights, just the people already there. And those people were tired too. This is why the worst threat was so frightening. It looked like small failures stacking together. The fire, weaker than yesterday. The food, less safe than yesterday. The tracks harder to read than yesterday. The children quieter than yesterday. No single moment looked like the end. But every day, the group had fewer choices. And now, the answer becomes clear. The worst threat was not the predator outside the camp. It was the storm that turned the camp against them. Not one dramatic storm. Not one loud night, and then a clean morning. Storm after storm. The kind that arrived before food was secured, stayed long enough to spoil what little was safe, flooded the ground beneath them, and returned before the group had recovered. That was the nightmare. The place that protected them became wet. The food that fed them became dangerous. The fire that kept the dark away became weak. The paths they trusted disappeared. And the people who survived the first storm had to face the next one with less strength than before. A predator attacked the body. Repeated storms attacked everything around the body. And then came the water. That is the part people often forget. A storm did not end when the noise stopped. Water kept moving. A sleeping place that looked safe yesterday could become a channel. A dry hollow could fill. A river could rise until the old crossing disappeared. Mud could swallow footprints. Tools could be lost. Stored food could be soaked. A camp could be split in half by water that was not there the day before. And if someone slipped into fast water, there was no rescue boat coming. No rope team. No emergency radio. No hospital downstream. Just people shouting over the water, trying to grab a hand before it vanished. To feel how terrifying this was, do not imagine one lonely hunter standing in bad weather. Imagine the band as a small village without walls. Not houses, not streets, not storage rooms. Just people, memory, fire, tools, skins, children, old knowledge, and whatever food they had managed to keep safe. Maybe 25 people, maybe 30, small enough that every missing person changed the future. Yesterday, they had 30 people. By morning, one hunter was missing in the water. The elder who knew the safer ridge could no longer stand. A child had stopped crying, which was worse than crying. The woman guarding the food opened the bundle and smelled rot. No predator had entered the camp, but the group was smaller, colder, hungrier, and less able to make the next decision. That is what made storms different from predators. A predator could kill one person and leave the group terrified. A storm could kill one person, weaken 10 more, ruin the food, drown the fire, erase the path, and make the next day worse before it even began. Before the storm, they had to guess. For modern humans, a storm often begins as a warning. A satellite image, a forecast, a message, a siren. In. A government order to move. For prehistoric humans, it began as signs. Animals moving strangely, birds going quiet, air changing, light turning wrong. A pressure in the body that older people might recognize, but younger people might ignore. The group had to decide. Stay near the fire? Move before it was too late? Protect the food? Search for higher ground? Carry the children? Leave heavy tools behind? There was no perfect answer, only decisions made with incomplete signs. If they moved too early, they could waste energy they did not have. If they waited too long, the path could vanish. If they carried food, they moved slower. If they left food behind, hunger followed. If they protected the fire, someone had to risk staying close to it. If they searched for shelter, someone might not return. The danger began before anyone could prove it had arrived. During the storm, survival became smaller. Not because humans forgot how to live, but because the storm removed their options. The hunter could not track. The firekeeper could not find dry wood. The children could not stay warm. The group could not move far. Food could not be replaced. A predator attacks by coming closer. A storm attacks by closing every door. The rain did not just fall. It erased tracks, killed weak fires, softened the ground, soaked the skins, made tools harder to handle, turned distance into danger, turned shelter into a question, turned food into a race against rot. A spear is useful when a person can stand firmly, but slick ground changes that. A stone blade is useful when hands can grip, but cold fingers lose their strength. A fire is useful when fuel can burn, but wet wood turns warmth into smoke. A shelter is useful when the ground below it stays ground, but water can make a sleeping place into a channel. That is why a storm could become worse than a predator. A predator tested courage. A storm tested everything. And after the storm, the danger was still not over. That may have been the cruelest part. The storm ending did not mean the group was safe. It only meant they could finally see what had been taken. The food smelled wrong. The firewood was still useless. The sleeping ground was wet. The tracks were gone. The animals had not returned. A child who shivered all night now barely responded. An elder who knew the safer ridge no longer had the strength to walk. A hunter who slipped on wet stone could not put weight on one leg. Someone who had been cut while moving through broken ground now had a wound that would not stay clean. The deaths did not always come all at once. That made it worse. One person might be lost in the flood. Another might survive the night, but never fully warm again. A child might grow quiet after days of cold and hunger. An injured hunter might stop walking because the wet ground turned a small wound into something worse. An elder might know exactly where the group should go, but no longer have the body to reach it. This was how a storm could kill without looking like a battle. Not always with one dramatic strike, but by taking away one layer of survival after another. And in a small band, every death mattered. Losing one adult was not just losing one life. It could mean losing the best tracker, the person who remembered where animals crossed after hard cold, the person who knew which roots could be eaten after careful preparation, the person who could keep a fire alive under pressure, the person who carried a child when the group had to move, the person who had seen a strange season like this before. In a small group, every person carried labor, knowledge, protection, and memory. So when storms and floods killed people, they did not only reduce the number of bodies, they reduced the group's ability to survive the next disaster. And that is where the second storm becomes worse than the first. One storm was terror. The second storm was judgment. Because the second storm did not meet a strong group, it met a damaged one. The food was already low. The wood was still damp. The sleeping place still smelled of rot. The children had not recovered. The hunters had not eaten enough to hunt well. The people who died were still missing from the work that had to be done. The second storm did not have to be stronger. It only had to arrive before the band became whole again, before the wood dried, before the hunters ate enough to hunt well, before the injured could walk, before the missing could be replaced by memory, labor, or courage. The first storm damaged the group. The second storm attacked the damage. Again, the wind changed. Again, the animals moved wrong. Again, the old crossing disappeared. Again, the firekeeper protected a flame that barely lived. Again, the food bundle was opened with fear. Again, the group looked at the weakest people first, even if nobody wanted to. A repeated storm brings a different kind of fear. The fear that tomorrow will ask for strength no one has left. This is why predators were not the worst threat. A predator could kill a person, but repeated storms and floods could damage the whole band. They could kill some people directly, weaken the survivors, destroy the food, erase the paths, break the shelter, ruin the fire, and leave the group less able to face everything that came next, including predators. That is the final twist. Storms did not replace the danger of animals. They made animals more dangerous. A hungry, cold, exhausted group could not watch the dark as well. A weakened hunter could not throw as far. A child who cried from cold could draw attention. A wet fire gave less protection. A flooded camp forced people to move through unfamiliar ground. A group that had lost food might take risks they would normally avoid. So the storm did not need to have teeth. It could create the conditions where teeth mattered more. Modern people understand this more than we like to admit. Even today, with satellites, radar, warning systems, hospitals, emergency shelters, rescue teams, clean water trucks, food supply chains, and international aid, major storms and floods can still overwhelm entire regions. People still lose homes, food still spoils, power still fails, roads still disappear underwater, hospitals still become crowded, rescuers still cannot reach everyone in time. And that is with the modern world trying to help. Prehistoric humans faced violent weather without that world. No forecast days ahead. No evacuation order. No dry shelter guaranteed. No medicine after exposure. No clean water delivered after flooding. No outside village sending supplies. No emergency teams searching downstream. If the storm broke the camp had to rebuild itself. If the flood took someone, the group had to keep moving with that absence. If food rotted, the hunger belonged to everyone. If another storm arrived, it arrived against people who were already weaker than before. The point is not that prehistoric humans were helpless. They were not. They were observant, inventive, social. Tough. They read animal movement, protected fire, shared food, moved with memory, learned which shelters failed and which ones held. They cared for injured people when they could. They listened to elders because elders were living archives. They survived because they adapted. But repeated storms and floods were terrifying because they attacked adaptation itself. They changed the signs, ruined the stored food, erased the tracks, broke the shelter, weakened the group, and returned before people had time to learn from the last hit. A predator gave prehistoric humans an enemy. A storm gave them a collapsing world. So when we imagine prehistoric fear, we should still picture the eyes beyond the firelight, the teeth, the breathing in the dark. That fear was real. But the worst threat may have been the one that made even predators wait. The one that killed the fire, spoiled the food, flooded the ground, scattered the paths, took the weak first, and left the strong too tired to stay strong. Not predators, not one monster, but repeated storms and floods, the kind that could turn a camp into a trap, a meal into poison, a path into water, a fire into smoke, and a strong human group into people counting who was still able to stand. That was the threat prehistoric humans could not stab, could not chase, could not scare away with a spear. The threat that did not need to hunt them like an animal, because it could make survival itself hunt them instead.